Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and I'm very excited to have Kurtis Thomas with us. Kurtis is a corporate mindfulness trainer and founder of Breathwork Detox. He's the #1 bestselling author of The World is Yours, The Secret Behind the Secret. And he's author of the #1 new release on Amazon, How to Thrive in the Age of Anxiety. Kurtis, it's so great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Stephan. I appreciate it, man. I'm happy to be here.
So let's start by talking about your relationship with breath work. How did you get so, I don't know, fixated on it? How did it become such a thing for you? There must have been some origin story that is profound.
Yeah, well, they say the two greatest motivators are pain and pleasure, right? And unfortunately, one of them is a bit more of a motivator than another one. And unfortunately for me, I was suffering. I had severe pain, and even I think more insignificant than that was there was something mysterious going on with me medically that doctors couldn't tell me what was wrong with me. And that is quite frustrating when you're going to doctors and you're taking dozens and dozens of tests and spending thousands in co-payments. I had elected for three surgeries, and the doctors are coming back and saying, you're perfectly fine. It's all in your head. I had one doctor when I asked him to test me for the third time for the same thing because I swore he was wrong. He's like, Kurtis, you're healthier than I am. And it wasn't until I had my own CNT, which is a Taoist tummy massager, who told me my wind gate was blocked, and which is the energy center behind your belly button, which all your prana and your chi, all the woo-woo terminology. She advised me to go to a breathwork class. My very first breathwork class, I had a breakthrough, and I left. I went home, and my stomach pain was gone. And I'm talking about, Stephan, 5 years of going to the best doctors in LA to New York, and nobody could tell me what was wrong with me. But the reason why they couldn't is because my issue wasn't physical. It was emotional. It was energetic.
Yeah.
And they don't have the remedy for that.
Some might say that it's even at a deeper level, that it's spiritual.
Yes.
There are bigger forces at play, and we don't see the bigger picture, that perhaps this was a karmic debt that you had to pay from a past lifetime where you had hurt somebody else, or who knows what that might be. But some bigger picture exists that we cannot fully grasp.
Yeah. I would like to say that it led me to pretty much knowing that I went through the entire medical system. And I'm talking like from, conventional to Dave Asprey, anal and intravenous ozone therapy, like the whole spectrum. And it brought me back to the breath. The one thing that we all share together, the first thing we do when we come into this world, and the very last thing we do when we leave. The breath is so powerful. And I dropped everything that I was doing. I was a serial entrepreneur. I dropped everything, and I said, I'm putting everything into letting the world know about this specific modality because I know what it's capable of.
Wow. So you tried colonics, you tried Myers cocktails, the IV drip with vitamin C and all that. You tried all the different kinds of specialists, and nothing helped.
Things helped. I will say things helped. But as far as the breakthrough, the relief, it's really uncomfortable when you feel uncomfortable in your own body, and you have to show up and you have to provide for your family, and you have to go through life with a smile on your face, and nobody knows that there's gunfire going off in your head, and your energy is like, yeah, and we have to keep that straight face. That's like, I couldn't deal with that anymore. So things did help, but not the breakthrough that I had in breathwork. Now, mind you, I've been to the jungle and did ayahuasca, 14 times. And I got, scars on my arm from combo frog poison venom from the shamans that makes you projectile vomit. So I've done a lot of things. And I'm just flabbergasted that the breath out of all things is what gave me the most relief.
Yeah. And some things that are seemingly inconsequential to others because they don't see it, they don't feel what you're feeling, they just are completely ignorant of it, and yet you're going through hell. And I love the quote, if you're going through hell, keep on going. I forget who that was, if it was Schwarzkopf or some other general, Eisenhower or somebody, but I think it was a general. There's one episode on this podcast that comes to mind related to this, and it was Jonathan Fields. Jonathan is an amazing guy, and he was in agony. He was a tortured soul, and nobody knew it because of a physical ailment that the medical system couldn't fix, and that was tinnitus. Ringing in his ears drove him to suicidal thoughts, like he was at the end of his rope. And yet it was the gateway to breakthrough, an epiphany, a change that is so profound for him that I'm sure he wouldn't have taken the tinnitus away if he had the option to do it over again. And that was his mindfulness practice. He did not do mindfulness meditation prior to the tinnitus, and it was a last ditch effort to try and cope with this thing driving him mad in his head.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. You know, the purpose of pain isn't necessarily to make us suffer. It's to move us in another direction, you know? And if the universe didn't do that, we would have stayed the same. So, yeah, I guess I share a similar story. You know, we both got driven, herded into this, into a certain lifestyle.
Yeah. And, you know, there's this great truism that I heard a few years ago at a Next Level Experience event. And that was a story where the universe sends you these little hints, these little nudges, like it's a feather falling out of the sky, gently landing on your shoulder to tell you something, right? And then it's easy to ignore, of course, because it's so subtle. Then if you keep ignoring those feathers from the universe, eventually it turns into bricks. And when those bricks fall on you, they hurt. And after enough time of ignoring the bricks, then the Mack truck comes. And thankfully you didn't get the Mack truck. Maybe it was a small truck. Maybe it was like a minivan, but it was definitely after the after the feathers.
I love that. That was great.
Yeah. So tell me and our listener, what is it that is so game changing for a newbie in terms of breath work? Is it access to kind of other dimensions, to greater insights? Is it being able to go from sympathetic to parasympathetic in your nervous system? Is it about quieting the monkey mind so that you can get to a place of being able to listen and not just speak to your creator? Like prayer is speaking, but meditating is listening. So yeah, what is it that you think is going to be the big thing for our listener?
Yeah, you ready for this one?
Yep.
All the above. It is the secret sauce. And you know, this isn't just theory. Like I can go through each one of those and give you know, my philosophy, then also scientific, you know, backing. For instance, quiet the monkey mind. Right. Stephen Kotler talks about this because he talks about flow state a lot. So what happens in breath work right around the 8 to 12 minute mark, you reach your peak resistance. Now, if you push through that, you enter this quantum field. And what's happening is something called transient hypofrontality. And what that is when the prefrontal cortex of the brain begins to quiet down. That's the part of the brain that judges. It says, you're you, I'm me, this is good, this is bad, right? They call it the monkey mind, the critic, the ego. And when that begins to subside, you begin to have this tremendous amount of enhanced clarity. And this is why people get what we call downloads and epiphanies and realizations. They come flooding in because that little device in the brain, which I call it the self-sabotager, right? Just deflects everything, deflects. It goes away and you can see things crystal clear with no interference. And that's another word for flow state, that transient hypofrontality. Now,
by the way, there's a great term in Kabbalah for that inner critic. I just love this. It's the opponent.
Yeah, I like that. I'm
Yeah.
going to add that to the arsenal.
Okay.
The opponents. Okay.
Yeah, but
Cool.
keep going. Yeah.
So the best part, overall is that for a newbie trying breath work, it's unlike meditation. Meditation's great, but you need to really be consistent, and the results of meditation have compounded interest, compounded results. You need to continuously do it to really see the benefits of meditation. Breathwork is totally different. The results are immediate and undeniable. If you go through the session from beginning to end, you will have some sort of experience. And it's very simple. The breathing technique is very simple. I didn't say it was easy. I said it was simple. So it is going to take a little work to get to that point of resistance where you can push through and enter into transient hypofrontality. But majority of people, I've witnessed miracles on the mat and in my sessions. So the fact that it's immediate and undeniable, I think that's what new people love about it, because they don't have to continue going and going with the first shot. They're like, okay, this thing works, sign me up. Something else that you said too.
Well, one thing that that comes to my mind is with meditation, it's like a diet. You can't do it once and like one day and expect results. So doing the meditation over a long period of time, you get the results. But with a breathwork experience, you'll walk out a changed person, almost certainly.
Yeah. So exactly. So look at breath work as like cleaning your car with a power washer, right? And then that's the deep cleaning. Breath work is the deep cleaning. And now think of meditation as cleaning your car with a toothbrush, right? That's the maintenance, right? That's the maintenance, because I truly believe that meditation is an advanced practice. And why do I say that meditation is an advanced practice? Because if you try to get somebody who's stressed out, has got all these things going on, to sit down, sit still for 20 minutes and don't think a thought, they're going to get more stressed out, right? They're going to feel more like a failure in the subconscious. And it's so difficult. But when you implement a breathwork practice first and you begin clearing out, the heavy stuff that you don't even know that you're holding on to until you actually release it through the breathwork, then it makes meditation so much more easier and more enjoyable, because you don't have the mind going crazy. And I know you mentioned, sympathetic, parasympathetic. The interesting thing about that is that 99.9% of the time, people should be breathing through their nose. They really should. If you listen to read James Nestor's book, people tape their mouth shut when they sleep at night, so they breathe through their nose. With this breathwork detox, we breathe through the mouth, in through the mouth, out through the mouth, because it's a detox. People forget, like everyone's on a diet, like you said, and everyone's trying to lose weight, but they forget that 70% of the body's toxins are removed through the lungs. And this is why when people do breath work, this is what we're studying now. We're actually putting a lot of research into this. People are losing weight. They're losing 5, 10, 12 pounds from implementing what we created, something called the 30-day challenge. This wasn't part of it. That was never part of the plan to be like, this is a weight loss, but we have all these testimonials we're collecting. We're like, we need to look at this data. And there's Harvard researches that state that the reason why people gain weight is because they eat crappy foods. Now, why are they eating the crappy foods? It's because of the stress, which they did another study, Harvard, and this is a fact, that 60 to 90% of all doctors' visits are stress related. Okay. And I quoted that. Now, this stress releases cortisol, and cortisol actually makes you crave sugary, crappy foods. So what we notice is that when people are doing these diets, right, they're mowing the weeds, right? They're mowing the lawn, they're mowing the weeds. And this is why we know what happens. It grows back. Well, what's causing it to grow? And what we realize with breathwork is that It is going into the trauma. It is going into the deep-seated belief systems that is causing the stress, which is causing the cortisol, which is causing you to eat crappy foods. It is going in and is ripping out those weeds from the root. And this is why people were experiencing is that they're like, hey, I don't even crave these crappy foods anymore. Another person's like, I feel like I have a little guy on my shoulder now who's telling me, hey, don't eat that. Is because they got rid of that stress that's causing them to want those crappy foods, and people are losing weight. And this is new to us. So we're putting a lot of research into this, and it's fun to me because, like, you know, curiosity is just consciousness at work. And I'm just really curious about like the amazing things that this does. So it does so much more than even I know because I'm learning as I go.
Yeah, that's super cool. Now, going into that trauma to rip out the roots, how does that work? Like, what is a typical or an example experience of somebody? No need to give names unless they've given permission and want this information associated with their name. But I would love to hear a quick case study or two.
Yeah, there's a great testimonial by Dr. Michael Bruce, which we're both good friends with.
Yes,
and he
he's
gave me
awesome.
permission.
He's awesome.
He put it on my website, and he's arguably the world's #1 sleep doctor. And he had an amazing
a past guest on this show too.
in a past cast. Yes, I love Michael. So people can go check that out. But let me break how it clears out trauma, because a lot of let's just say sometimes the weight that we need to lose isn't on our physical body. And we're carrying a lot of emotional baggage, which is actually a real thing. And in that emotional baggage is all types of traumas and heartbreaks and you name it. And it's
the
heavy.
Issues are in the tissues, right?
You got my punchline. That's where I was going to, man. Come on. Yes, exactly. The issues are in the tissues because that's where we store that trauma and that emotional baggage. And the interesting thing is we don't even know it's there until it's gone, until we feel it leave. And what breathwork does, if you want me to go kind of technical and spiritual at the same time,
let's do it.
This was how my greatest realization is that we can all agree that we have blood in our bodies that circulates, that keeps us alive, right? And how is that blood distributed? It's distributed through veins and arteries. We know that because it's anatomically there, it's physical. Now, this non-physical world, even if you're not, the woo-woo master, we can all agree that there's an energy inside of us. There is some sort of vital life force energy that flows through every part of our vessel.
Right. Chi, prana, whatever, your
chi, prana, energy, whatever you want to call it. Yes.
Life force. Yeah.
That life force energy. Now, how does it get distributed through the body? And this was my discovery. It actually gets distributed through the body through these things called nadis, Nadis. Okay. And some people can call them meridians, but we have 72,000 of these nadis. And what they are is they're pranic channels, right? They're pranic highways, they're energetic highways where all our energy gets distributed. Now, interestingly enough, for my situation, there's one area in the body where all 72,000 of those nadis intersect. It's like the Times Square of your energy field. And take a guess where it was.
Solar plexus.
In the belly.
In the belly, okay.
Behind the belly button, where your wind gate is, where all the energy comes in and comes out. And if you get congested there, it's going to block up everything, every part of your body. Now, we can get clogs in these 72,000 nadis where the issues are in the tissues. It gets clogged. And very simple, like, oh, that person gets on my nerves, right? It's like it got clogged in that system and that person literally irritates you until that nadi is cleansed out, because that's how we clean out the emotions. Now, there's not much. There's no really pills that you can take. There's no medicines that the doctor can give you. The only two things that I witnessed that clean and clear out these nadis is Kundalini yoga and breathwork detox. Whenever you get a practice where you witness people cry, for no reason, it's because it's clearing out the nadis, it's clearing out your emotional body. And breathwork detox is by far the most effective way to clear this out and to get rid of that emotional baggage. There is nothing. Now, mind you, and I've been to the jungles of and did the ayahuasca, which is, I'm a fan. I wish it was just legal everywhere. I didn't have to go to the jungle, but you have to do it properly with the shamans, and it's very spiritual and it's very physical. But the breath is the Trojan horse. It's free. It's natural. Everybody's holding. You release DMT. We didn't get to that. I think we're probably going to get to that in a moment. You release DMT, and that's the methyltryptamine. It's the component, chemical, whatever, responsible getting secreted from the pineal gland when you dream at night. So it's literally what launches you in another dimension when you go to bed at night, where you're like, oh, this is real. And then you wake up. It's because of the DMT. Now, you can go on Netflix right now and type in the spirit molecule, and they're referring to DMT. It's known as the spirit molecule. Now, interestingly enough, more than the pineal gland, the lungs secrete more DMT than any other area in the body. So when you do this breathing technique, you begin to microdose on DMT naturally. And this is the reason why, because people have no idea. This is the reason why people have all these mystical experiences and all types of these weird connections to like the cosmos or to the earth or to the people in the room next to them, is because they're microdosing. And I witness it. And usually two things happen when they really start to activate the breathing is, half of the people have this natural euphoric and blissful high, and the other people just trip balls. And they're in like another dimensions, talking to their grandmother, getting the recipe to the, the family cake. Like, I've heard it all. And it's just so magical to me. And it's very similar to ayahuasca, but it's natural. It's breathing. And I just still can't get over it. And I've been doing this for years.
That is so awesome. And you mentioned earlier in this conversation, you've seen actual miracles. What would be an example of a miracle?
Okay, this one I wouldn't consider a miracle. I can get to a miracle is something that's unbelievable. I can get to that. But you asked a specific question of what does trauma look like leaving the body? Now, so I train teachers and stuff like that, and I work with other breathwork people. And there was a gentleman who was a war veteran, and he started the breathwork. And in the breathwork, all of a sudden, his legs started to run. Like he was running a marathon, just like they started slow and then like literally like Carl Lewis sprinting. And, I've seen a bunch of things. So you want to let that experience play out. And so I let it play out, whatever. And what happened to that gentleman afterwards, when we're in the integration phase, is that person was in a war. He was a true war veteran. And in war, there was one of those IEDs or whatever that, hit his Hummer and killed one of his friends, injured another person. And then he froze. Fight, flight, or freeze. He froze and literally was frozen while all this stuff was happening around him. And he suffered from severe PTSD. And when he started the breathing technique, he was able to tap into that emotional body, and he went back to that moment, and he had the physical response of running. So he acted it out. He got it out of his system. And then that after the breath work, that trauma was released from his body and his PTSD was completely gone.
Wow. That's incredible. It's like he relived the experience and relived it differently, which is reminds me of what is it, CBT or DBT? Yeah, I think it's CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, where A plus B equals C, the activating event plus the belief equals your experience or circumstance or whatever. But you can apply this different equation, which is A plus B plus C plus D equals E or something like that, where it's the activating event plus the belief plus you experiencing it again, that's the E, plus the D is a decision to replay this in a different way, equals a whole new outcome. So I kind of butchered the equation, but that's the general principle. And it sounds like he did that in super speed through this breathwork experience.
Yeah. He was able to tap in, and sometimes, not all the time, sometimes you got to feel it to heal it, and and he relived that. Now that wasn't his intention, right? That was just what his soul in his body knew that he needed to release, because it was just hindering him. But he never was given the opportunity. I don't care how much therapy you have and how many pills that you're on, shit doesn't work. It's like you really got to tap into the body. And I'm not saying none of that stuff works, because there is. I don't want to discredit. But in conjunction, when you're really able to clear out the emotional body, and this is just coming from a place of trying everything and realizing that the majority of our issues, and like we said from Harvard, 60 to 90% is stress related, is stress, is emotion, is energy. And our medical system does not focus on those particular things. They discredit them, actually. And that sucks.
Yeah.
It really does.
So there's something else that came to mind when you were talking about PTSD, and that was another interview on this show with David Berceli, and he's the creator of TRE. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, tension and trauma release exercises is what that stands for, and that can help people with PTSD and lots of other people as well to get those issues out of their tissues. It's like
great.
You're going through the motions of the trauma release when people shake it off, or when animals get hit by a car and they shake it off. That's a way of purging or releasing the trauma, and that can be done just by going through those motions of shuddering and shaking and what have you, and that while you're experiencing your fear, anxiety, or whatever from that experience that you keep re-experiencing, can just fix it.
Yep, I'm a fan of TRE, and I'm grateful for that work, because it does work. It does work. I was actually just doing it yesterday. I do this exercise at the gym. It's like one of those female exercises. It looks like you put your legs in and you kind of go out like this. And when I hold a specific area, my whole legs and stomach shake. And I use that as an exercise to clear that energy out. So it shakes so much. I know my intention is I'm getting rid of stuff, because even though I do the breath work and I healed my stomach, now that I'm holding space for thousands of other people to heal, you tend to take on other people's energy. So I have to have a continuous practice that clears and cleanses myself out. And TRE is in that.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So what a phenomenal story that you shared about the veteran. Now you said there is an example of a full-blown, unbelievable miracle. Can you share that one?
Yeah, believe it or not, there's a bunch, but this is the one that I love, because it came in threes. Like things have to come in for threes, and I'll use one lady because she gave a video testimonial. She wouldn't shut up about it. She was so happy. She was married, I don't know, for 12 years or something like that. And they were trying to have a child for years. I forget the number, try like 5-6 years, like went to doctors and, all those special fertilizer people or whatever, and they couldn't have a baby. And she took my breathwork class. And in the breathwork class, she said that she saw an energy in her woman's area, uterus or whatever it was, like a dark shadow or whatever. It lifted from her, and she said she's seen it in her third eye or whatever leave. And she goes, at that very moment, she had a flash of a baby, and she knew that she was able to have a child, and then that she was going to get pregnant. I mean, very shortly after, she reached out to me. She told me the whole story. She showed me the baby thing, and she's like, I'm pregnant. Wow. And I was like, I got goosebumps just thinking about it. And the reason why that one is a miracle, because like it created life.
Yeah.
And this
life
was like
itself is a miracle.
yeah. So when I hear the word miracle, I'm like, oh man, there's nothing more significant to me than a married couple who want to have a child, who couldn't and tried everything, did a breath work and knew in the breath work they were going to be pregnant within the next month. And they did. And now it wasn't just her. There was 2 more people after her within like 2-3 week periods that said the same thing. And I was like, okay, this is a thing. I don't think I'm going to go out there and promote it. Like, hey, you want to get pregnant? Come do this. But I think, I truly believe people who are in touch with their higher selves, if they'll find me, they'll find me. I don't really have to put myself out there in that manner, but they found me, so it's beautiful, man. I love what I do. I truly do.
And of course, we're at 33 minutes in our recording right now.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, that's great. So do you see things in your third eye?
I do. Yeah, I do. Many of which, I mean, breath work, when I do breath work, the downloads, the epiphanies, the things that come in, a lot of how I'm growing this business is like, I go into breath work. How do I do this? How do I solve this problem? It's a great problem solver. And as far as creativity, I mean, God, there's no pill that you can take for creativity. I've taken all the nootropics, legal and probably illegal, all the Dave Asprey stuff, everything that I think that could work as far as brain enhancement. And the breath work has been by far the thing that has enhanced my creativity the most. And in all honesty, I don't really think it's even enhancing the creativity. I actually think it's removing all the things that's blocking the creativity, because I just feel and think so clear when I'm in the breathwork sessions.
But have you had like visions? Have you had, I don't know, certain kinds of prophetic dreams or lucid dreams or whatever that have been quite impactful for you? Or have you had knowings that just showed up for you and you couldn't have possibly have known it any other way?
Yeah, I'll say this. A lot of those visions, those prophetic visions, they're very much out there. And if people want to see those, they can go on my Instagram page, because I put them on my stories. Whenever I have these visions, and there's like, I have saved stories, and I'll put them in there, and literally just strings of just visions and prophecies and stuff like that. And people always ask me like, how do you get this information? But I kind of always been getting it, to be honest, because before the breath work, I wrote a book called The World Is Yours, The Awakening, The Secrets Behind the Secret. And after my brother had passed, I really started getting downloads and information, and so much. I never wanted to be a writer. That was never my thing, but I started writing. I started getting all this information put in a book. And then, it became a #1 bestseller. Oprah got it, Tony Robbins, Kim, Kanye, and you name every Lady Gaga, 150 of the biggest celebrities are seen in photos, walking in TMZ with my book, Usher.
Congrats.
And yeah, thanks. And it was pure organic. Like, that book was just the reason why it resonates with people is because it's very deep, it's very profound, but it's simple. Like, it's for, like, I've had 10-year-old kids read my book, and their parents reach out to me and said the book changed their life. So simplicity, people just, they want to understand stuff. They want to connect the dots.
Yeah. And did you have a particular matrix moment where you saw the bigger picture, you saw the matrix, and thus things like the book, The World Is Yours, that just was an inevitable conclusion or byproduct?
Yeah. I mean, if you want this interview to go really left and weird,
I've had a lot more left than you. So
okay, good. Yeah, I mean, I was in entertainment industry. I've had liquor companies. I've worked with like New England Patriots, just kind of really into that scene. So I was never into like any of this metaphysical stuff until, like I told you, that pivotal moment when my brother had passed, and I started to get into my spirituality and started getting downloads. I've done the ayahuasca and had profound experiences with beings. But even before the ayahuasca, I started to see UFOs. I've never seen a UFO before, and I was fascinated with it. Even, long story short, I started writing "The World Is Yours," and I got frustrated, and I went to go delete it. And when I went to go delete it, I was walking up the stairs, and something told me to turn around. And I turn around, and I see a shooting star. And I'm like, holy crap, was I supposed to make a wish? And I'm going back and forth in my head. And I was like, oh, maybe it's a sign that I'm meant to write a stupid book. Is this a sign? And then I seen a comet, like a comet, not a shooting star, go through the sky. And then I started seeing UFOs, and I'm like, whoa, life got really, really weird. And that's why my name on Instagram is actually Man from the Stars. It's when all this started to happen. And what was really happening was I was connected to my galactic roots. Like, we all have our family here. I got my daughter, I got my mother, I got my family, I got my dog, but we actually have a real family that is, from our galactic origins, up there. This is a very temporary, this is a blip in our soul's evolution in our life. It's very significant, and we won't get into how significant this lifetime is on Earth and what's about to transpire. But it's a blip. It's bigger than big. It is like, in the book I call it, this is the galactic Super Bowl of human evolution that has never been experienced before. There's never before been a planet and an entire civilization that chose to ascend together. They've done it separately, but never together. It's much, much harder, as you can see, but it's never been done before. And there's beings literally from different quadrants of the galaxy all over here to witness this. And why we can't see them and interact with them, that's another whole nother story. But I promise you, it's for their own safety, because there's bigger things going on. But let's just say that there's a whole nother reality in a world out there. And I started to experience these things that I thought turned my world upside down. But obviously I found out it turned my world right side up. And I started to look into deeper levels of truth, and things of fiction didn't seem so fiction when my consciousness began to expand. Because when I started to see the UFOs, I remember when I seen my first one in Joshua Tree, I took a certification called CE5 with Dr. Stephan. He didn't lead it, but it was called CE5, which means Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which means you actually go out and you do human initiated contact. Now, at the time, I thought it was kind of BS that you could do a protocol and call ships in. But when I went out there, the 3 days, every single day of those 3 days, ships showed up. And I remember my most profound experience when I saw it. I could feel literally something inside me. It was more like a glass ceiling of consciousness that was clear. It shattered. And from one moment to the next, I just had this deeper connection that I knew anything was possible. Like, if I just witnessed and saw what I saw, I go, if they came here from a different part of the galaxy, I go, anything is possible. And it was a feeling more than a thought. And I just started living life completely different from that moment forth.
Yeah, I'm starting to really grasp that anything is possible.
Yes, man. Oh, and it's a good feeling.
Oh my goodness. Just little things too. Like, oh, I really want a FedEx truck to show up right now so that I don't have to go out of my way to a FedEx drop-off location, and boom.
Boom. Magic.
Immediately. Right. Like, it wasn't even part out of the way. It was immediately in the way. It was in the middle lane, parked with the guy behind the truck. All I had to do was slow down. There were no cars, of course, behind me. So I was able to just give him the package, and he scanned it, and then I was off. I didn't go even an inch out of my way.
I
love that.
Dude, those are the stories you collect that make you become a master manifester, because you begin to truly believe that anything's possible, because you have all these experiences of things that you just instantly manifest. And I have a bunch of them. And that's how you enhance your power, because it's all belief. Like, people think you need to see it to believe it. I promise you that's BS. You really need to believe it to see it. And the more you believe it, the more you see it.
Yeah.
Just how it works.
Yeah, so true. And the people that you would never guess are spiritual and have seen angels or collaborated with angels or with higher beings and so forth. The people who you think are the the most scientific and skeptical, and then they'll tell you in private, oh no, actually I saw angels.
In private, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Which
cool.
brings me to another point too, that I was thinking about this earlier when you were talking about clearing out the nadis. You know of only two ways. Actually, there's a third way, since we're talking about this topic right now. And I just interviewed recently Tina Zion, who is a world-renowned medical intuitive and healer. And clearing out the nadis, you can call in a divine and sacred being
Okay.
who specializes in that particular issue. And it could be in you, it could be in somebody else, it could be in even a disembodied spirit, right? So you're getting kind of haunted or whatever, you're getting some weird things happening in your home. You could call in a divine and sacred being who specializes in that entity or soul that's disincarnated, that's hanging around at that property, and boom, there he or she shows up. And then you can ask all sorts of things like, show me the point of origin of this, show me how this is serving me or the other person or whatever. You can ask them, of course, then to heal it and take it
Yeah.
away, clear out those energy centers, uh, take the negative entity that's attached or whatever into the light. There's all sorts of really cool stuff you can do just by asking the right questions. Like first of all, call in the right beings who are the specialists
Yeah.
rather than just making a general prayer. And then to make those very specific and precise requests.
Yeah.
Really cool. Really, really cool. So that I'm excited for that episode to air. It hasn't aired quite
Oh,
yet, but it will by the time this episode airs.
perfect.
Yeah, yeah. So that we'll link to that in the show notes. So that's the third way to clear out the nadis.
Yeah, and I'd put that under prayer, as far as prayer and invocation, when you're invocating
Sure.
it's spirits or divine energy, because it all comes from the same source. But there's different beings that do specialize in different things. So by all means, prayer is always going to be, the foundational work for pretty much everything that I do is has prayer in it. Even my business, at one point early, I won't say early, but at one point in my business evolution, I realized that I needed to make God my business partner. And when I started doing that, everything changed. And how I learned that was pretty interesting. I had a business partner, and we were doing great. And at one point, we, after 5 years of business, we just decided to go our own ways, our separate ways. And it wasn't bad blood or anything like that. And he's like, I really want to do things on my own. I want to go in this direction. And he's like, and I was like, cool. Shortly after, he's telling me like he has a new business partner, and I'm sitting here like, you just said you want to work on your own. Like, what are you talking about? And like, I'm like clenching my jaws. I'm like listening to him. I'm like, oh yeah. And he's going on. He's the greatest business partner and this and that. And going on. And he's like, and I'm like, who's his business partner? And he's like, God. And I was like, okay, I don't have to compete with that guy, and something clicked. And I was like, okay, he's onto something. And I started implementing God in my business endeavors, and everything shifted and changed.
Amazing. Yeah. The most unlikely messengers show up for us sometimes to give us the most important messages of our lives.
I agree. I actually say that at the end of breathwork, when I suggest people, hey, make sure you don't call or text any exes, because they're in this nice vibration. And I go, but just remember, temporary people come to teach permanent lessons. Some things stick. By far that was one of them, and I'm still friends with him. That's my dog for life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, coming from this perspective of the, glimpsing this bigger picture, knowing more about your origins and how we're all connected, and how there's everybody's watching, not just on this physical plane, but all planes of existence. We're the center of attention right now because this is a pivotal moment in human evolution and in the evolution of the entire planet. So how does your new, or from that point forward, viewpoint on things, how does that shift or change the view of your brother passing?
I think the whole reason why my brother passing was so profound and effective is because I viewed it, I had my breakthrough was then. So I view it the same then as I do now. And that's why I got on this path, because when my brother passed, what happened was some random psychic came up to me. I was living in Rhode Island. I was visiting California, and she's like, "Your brother's here. He wants to connect to you." And I'm like, you don't know me. I'm not from here. And long story short, she gave me a card, and they never caught the people that killed my brother. They killed him and his fiance in a home invasion. And his fiance's father was a retired Boston police detective. So every cop was on that particular case, and they never caught the people that did it. And so I got desperate, and I talked to this lady, and she told me, she connected to my brother. He told me through her who did it. And it was people that his friends. So I'm like, what? This doesn't make sense. And 2 weeks later, they caught the people that did it. And I read the front page of the Boston Globe or whatever it was. And the same names that he gave me were the same names in the Boston newspaper. And I was like, wait a second. How is this possible?
Wow.
And then like he told me my sister was pregnant, and like she was pregnant. And I'm just like, what? Like all these different things. So I'm like, okay, wait a second. If this being can see into the past, present, and future, and can see everything about everybody, the epiphany I had was, one, I want to learn more about the spiritual world, because I'm like, when I learn something, I got to go all in. Because if it's already there, whether I like it, know it, or don't, it's there and it's in effect. So I want to learn it. And then it also made me realize, if they can see everything, well, what am I hiding from? And I didn't even know I was hiding until that moment. I was like, wow, there's no secrets. If you think you have a secret, you do not have a secret. I can promise you that. There are no secrets. These beings, and they see everything. They are monitoring our every thought.
Yes. No matter how private thoughts.
There are no private thoughts. There's no privacy. It's truly like, and I started at that moment. I said, wow, I don't have to hide. And I started living my life from that moment with more transparency. And when you do that, woof, man, a lot can shift in your life. A lot can change.
Yeah.
So, so that's kind of my story with that. And that still stays with me. I still feel those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And an additional point to add about the transparency is that when you live with that kind of transparency, knowing full well that your thoughts are being broadcast, they're not even being monitored, they're being broadcast, that changes the way that you think. And for me, the purity of thought really kicked in, and that allowed so many more miracles to happen, because that combination of purity of thought, word, and deed, all congruent with each other, that creates very powerful positive angels.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, if somebody's tapped in and was able to read every thought I had every single day, I'm not perfect. I wouldn't sign up for that test, but I am definitely, I understand the integrity of thoughts, and more important, intentions. Little shifts make a big difference. That's the thing. Those little changes doesn't take much.
Yeah. And the relationships that we're closest to are the most important. We think, okay, well, if I say something unkind to my partner, that's behind closed doors, and that's not as big of a deal as having an outburst in my workplace or whatever. Oh no, it's actually worse. It's actually worse. From a spiritual perspective, that's your person. That's your soulmate. And the worst of the worst is to betray that person, to cheat on that person. That can just have a ripple effect across dimensions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facts. Facts. I agree. I mean, karma is it's a real thing. It's not all bad. There's good karma, you know. I look at it as the law of balance. Um, but yeah, you're speaking truth and facts, buddy.
Well, thank you. And one thing I want to circle back to for a minute before we close out this episode is this concept of microdosing DMT, to get back to the biochemistry here. By the way, there was a great episode of an expert on microdosing, Dennis Naughton, that I'm going to include in the show notes for this episode. He's phenomenal. But for somebody who is really anti drugs or brain altering substances or whatever, somebody who's never even smoked a cigarette or something, what would you tell that person about this? Like how do you allay their concerns around getting a nice big dose of something that is, I don't know, maybe an illegal substance
I'm
just by breathing?
I'm so glad that you're so tuned in, tapped in, and turned on that you're able to circle back to that, because I make a point at every breathwork introduction, whenever I mention any of that stuff. The caveat is that I would say is that, listen, this is unlike anything like mushrooms or DMT or acid or any of that stuff. It is much different, because when you take those, you're committed. You are on that ride for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, and you're not getting off until it's done. That substance is in control, and you must surrender to it if you wish to have a good experience. Okay. Breathwork is nothing like that, because you are in control. You are in 100% control. You are in the driver's seat. I'm in the passenger seat guiding you, and you can speed up your rocket ship and take off and go as far as deep as you want, or you can slow it down, right? Or even stop the breathing at any given time and completely, just stop the process that you're undergoing. So they're in control. That's the number one thing I let them know, that all sensations are temporary. They're going to go away, and that they're in control. Now, I encourage them greatly to don't slow down, to keep going, to push past that resistant point so they can go into that transient hyperfrontality and have this amazing experience that thousands of people are having every week in my breathworks. And I tell them, if you want to have a breakthrough, you got to break through. You got to push a little bit. So, and I'm there to hold that space for them, to hold their hand and guide them through it. And even afterwards, I'm answering questions for up to like 2-3 days. And I'm there to support people. That's my job.
Awesome. And you do these workshops, these breathwork workshops over Zoom as well as in person, or just over Zoom these days?
90% Zoom.
Yeah.
I just did a couple events back on the East Coast last week, so they're still going on. But Zoom is just, people feel more comfortable. They're in their own home.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier. I got people from all types of countries. Like, it's just beautiful just seeing all these people like just show up in the Zoom and changing lives from like literally like my office.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, so where do our listeners go to sign up, to work with you, get this breathwork experience that changes their lives?
Yeah, so very simple, breathworkdetox.com. breathworkdetox.com, and that'll bring you to like the program suite where they can click and go into the virtual events, which I recommend, especially if someone's new. They'll go into a virtual event, they can try it. And then there's other programs for people that want to go deeper, such as the 30-day challenge, that program I was talking about. We have teacher training, so I teach people to do exactly what I do. But I always say, get a taste of it, because once they get a taste, it's like, it's a game changer. Yeah, you're hooked. You're literally hooked, and it's a game changer. So,
awesome.
Yeah, definitely try it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kurtis. This was fascinating and so much fun and enlightening. And thank you, listener, for sticking it out to the end. I really think you're on to great things, but you got to put it into action. So we'll catch you in the next episode. This is your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.